call, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and also the members of RDC and the our partners from the Chambers of Commerce. Good morning, and this is roll call for RDC's leadership meeting with the Net Chambers of Commerce for July 6th at 8 a.m. Ricky Naz.
Delegate Rick Nez is on the call. Thank you.
Thomas Walker Jr. Thomas Walker Jr. Herman M. Daniels. Herman M. Daniels. Key Ellen Begay. Key Ellen Begay.
Chairman Key Ellen Begay Jr. is online. Thank you.
Mark Freeland. Mark Freeland. Wilson Stewart Jr. Wilson Stewart Jr. Mr. Chair, I received a text that Vice Chairman Thomas Walker is on the call, but he's having internet issues as well. So he should be back on the call in a few minutes. But there are three of you on the call. Mr. Chair, back to you.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Begay. Honorable Begay, could you do the invocation?
Chairman, good morning, Nana. Oshinkudo, so that deals in Adoyat Anosho Kudo meetings scheduled Alia given Shinkudo Sahnani Lindo Lish. He had got Yashon Loni Kudo. The Binibi Hihanandish Nido Lish. The Binibi Kudo. Hana Holiango, Naniska. Other been not a non hinset. Other con art Hassan Sago bake it like wagon some cag. Instead that a to that a kaya. It asking kudo in non leaning Hahin Lado, it asking kudo in non leaning. Pay it 8 or less open yation court art in that a. Niet win lago die ziet omdat de gewoon de schade voor de kwaad wordt in aard wordt of lekker die aarde ligt door aarde ook je handen niet door ligt is je bij iets in de has het en dat goed het afzien naar has aan naar samen kai aard het einde kudo op aan een kan naar holia naar je na pa I could eat egg way could also doesn't lean the bench has sit or this. Ada could some kai did Nanishilini Hahitan Ado Nanishilini did up cake you dusty sheed. Put out for Johanan slide or less. And that has it and a hot quaggy bend has it. Hit it nego which. The nanich Suzido, the nanich Yaskito, need naye. Nanzo did project. On the head of Binika, the shade of Bin Shata. I would end on her in Lido or in Ligo. She came in on hidden. Egg it out, Kodo, it ashing home. And that has eggy Hagishin on the Shindini. At the Schlish Hagishin bait, the Schwashy. A quaggisha cannot slide or deed on it, the quagga. Medium linigi, Ishin Kodo. Out ego, but yet you know, they cut on this. Blessing each and every one of my committee member, the council. Ado Kodo, the leadership of the Navajo Nation. Partners, the left, has Ado. Ado Kodo, the President's Office. Chief Justice, Speaker, I could eat egg way could do what's on that a yat eho or dash yat eho in sa case Brazil in sada case yet that issued art way could do Nihini Nini kid or this guard Ada kudo ne Chamber of Commerce Liegoshin it Ashin kudo banana shidayusin. However, their forum for the purpose it should be near Konkat. Near he kay, be he near he cut on the stop he kay. Bananas Ado it Ashin kudo na. Na be hob Cape Ka has ange a dish was lit on his has lit out deal was nigo. Yen hit yatki ishi. Abiachtas nito babahotsa do less. I could ask for the 8 Okodon and Nadan Ado Likat. Ado Kodo, blessing each and every one of our veterans, our grandma's grandpa's hard she, and that could they cut the son is three by the hand in the house hand. Ado sat the shin and then lean, they'll eat in the house. Ask for Ecuador Benil meat or little, ask for Ecuador. Yeah, they in that sleep or little, but I ain't should have home and God. What ail the Kodo, the district. The Binibi Ecuador did I large in the needs and large in anani yard on this. So everything else we just put in your hand. Just give us the strength and the wisdom to move forward, God. So with that, did ego shinkodo nice as candle listo it also chanata si kids on this God. So a baby nashukodo so there's an lean it after slide on this. I couldn't his staff that so Nabada Holia, he attorneys, the programs. Could eat ego codots of the Zendini. John Slado Lish. God, Adakodo, yet Asana is Shinib in the cargo that she did I add. Petition Hana eat loud all this. Don Hanadi yin all this. Adakunkea Kai, Yateho Hai Noda. Could the Beha see in Chicobahi needs and all the son Hichabahi needs it or this God. Could eat ego codots of the Zendini. On John Slado Lish. In Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you very much, Honorable Begay. Echehe, Nachatsatan Zenige, Ashinhut on Hunebicht Ehro, Dida, Sahni Kliniki, Nabigil Kitole. So thank you. Moving down on the agenda, we have introductions. We'll start with the honorable members of RDC. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm on the call.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chairman and committee members, Shananta, Ado, legislative staff, and then our presenters for the day, the Net Chambers of Commerce, Ado, and then the listeners, the audience that we have, Ado, other colleagues of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. Yaten Gidini Dodik. Thomas Walker H. Nana City Tona Hedling or To Nana Hassan Takoha did a struggle person the Kadahisto Ibanasha Ishvans under Yahanachachi. Alokaja Archer Kahunet, Western Navajo Agency. I could la ko ado don and shinigi a shin hinch be petron bashin do what some she that sadishki national level go get ya da adana so say do the ph I don't care to the honorable brigade for your invitation this morning he don't echo not ani I thought there was no echo. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable Daniels. Honorable Begay.
Chairman, Nando this Kudo. Although everyone that's on the line, good morning again. Kudo Shedetche. هنغان هيت نانشلون كي أني داش جاء بتأني داش شيء داش داش ناله. The 5 chapters that I represent from the Central Agency to RDC are Low Mountain, Tachibuga, Salana Canwood, Malzini, and many from Fleet Ecuador. But Hadasha, according to IJ, that's the same to this chairman. Yeah.
Thank you. Honorable Begay. Honorable Freeland. Honorable Stewart.
Oh, good morning, Shania, Chair. Shania, Key, Thomas, and then the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Watchman and Mr. Henderson and the whole crew on that side. Good morning to every one of you. Shaya Wilson, C. Stewart Jr. Age, yeah, I'm on my way to Crystal this morning, Chair, so I'll be dropping service a couple of times. But I represent 4 chapters. And what's on the ancient non-ish education, but just chin, touching the shade, don't be between the Chanela. Arkansas, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Honorable Freeland.
Chairman, sorry, I was muted. I'm on my way into Gallup this morning, so Shay Mark Freeland is here. The Finnegan Tutoni sort of Kiani, Bush's Chin, Sandra Kim, the Shell, I represent 8 chapters out of Eastern Navajo, Crown Point, Najas Cage, I, Vicente, White Rock, Lake Valley, Herpano, Nayaza. Good morning to one and all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Shay, I recognize in Shihawa Sanan Slow Zaytka Chin, Bush's Chin, Sun Hapish, the Shay. Can't ani that should not out the Nanchla. A stronger chapters gonna Nishige, Hogback, San Juan, in Nizar, Upper Fruland, Burnham, and Newcomb. Welcome, everybody. Honorable Auto Show.
Good morning, members of the Resources and Development Committee, members Auto Show in Shia, Aronda Kodo, and Kaina, Toyket Leaning. And as a couple of Habashin look at Nadash Shade or Tinajin, Shinal, I mentioned Toniness is a day of Bijma, but I need it down to see all the show that I have an interesting conversation with it in the Chambers of Commerce. So, really look forward to this dialogue. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable So. RDC staff, Ms. Begay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the RDC members and also the now 24th Nomination Council that are on the line, as well as the Net Chambers of Commerce. Ayat Ehibenish Eya Shami Begay in Shado na Kaiden and Slonda Betlijan Bashichin Kabai Data Shichi Kachini Data Shanalo is Sun and Shle. Lane Ichi down, Sawmill, Arizona down, Nasha. Yat a Benin, Junagoshi, Atlantic Lake, Citizen, Lenin Junabuko, Nahabeha, Otzi, Doshibi, Kataini Ningo, Net Nijet Nasunane, Katole, Koyat a hat. Mr. Chair, back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Begay. Ms. Woody.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Auto Resources Development Committee members. Danatlinin Hido Anal Toyat E Shalchene Adon Da Yat E Benin Hidishnido Leshe Ya Teresa Woodin Shiro Tabahan for the Betlejan Bushes Chain. Here on it as Chedo Tina as Shinale. I had all in each and that has the Snido Le here, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Woody. Today we have Mr. Abeda with us from Office of Legislative Counsel. Mr. Abeda. None? Okay, we'll go to the Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Chair.
press *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Tom Curley.
Hello, everyone. Hello, this is Tom Curley here. Can anybody hear me out there?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. We welcome the opportunity to come before the committee here. Honorable Sinata Danasini Kodi Kodo. The net chamber do the Nenaso the Doka got economic development with the Nini do private enterprise with the Nini Halit Asatoni do the Neat got because we advocate for small businesses and the opportunity for the Navajo Nation to prosper and to keep the dollar within the bounds of the Navajo Reservation. So we bring some very good ideas, we think, to help your council and your committees to forward this idea and make things possible. With that said, I would like to turn the time over to my esteemed colleague, Derek Watchman, who is our vocal advocate, and saying that he is very well versed in speaking and coordinating things with our contacts and stuff. We'd like for him to be the forefront in speaking up for us. We welcome all that is interested in this subject and would love to be able to be instrumental in bringing it forward. Yes.
We're having introductions.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and honored members of RDC. I would like to take the time to thank you for.
Can you speak louder or turn up your volume? We can hardly hear you.
Is this better?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to take the time to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and RDC members, honorable councilmen, and esteemed guests. My name is John Lewis. I am from Tuba City, born in Tuba City and raised in Flagstaff. And I don't speak our beloved language, and I feel so bad about that. But my clans are Tuatachitni. My son was Tuatachitni, and my grandmother on my Zuni side was Corn Clan, Corn for Coyote Clan. So Tuatachitni and Tachitni on the Navajo, and my grandfather was Governor Lewis of Zuni Pueblo. And I am currently employed with the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber, and I have back in the early 2000s, helped put the American Indian Chamber of Commerce of New Mexico together. So I have, along with Derek Watchman, have experience in chamber operations and programming, and also procurement and business development. So, you know, we have the experience to move this program forward. So, you know, with the help of RTC, we feel that we can do a great number of things. So thank you for the opportunity for letting us present today. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Davies?
Mr. Chair and members of the RDC and support staff, Ms. Begay and Ms. Woody. Thank you for the opportunity this morning. She Liddell Davies and she Senjikin and Shlinota did not abashchi Tachini da Shichedo Kia Ani da Shanella. I live and work out of St. Michael's. Many of you may know me through that my mother was Claudine Bates Arthur, my father was Harris Arthur. I have been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for about going on 7 years now, a member of the board of directors. I have a small business that I operate pretty much virtually online, and we're very grateful to have this opportunity to present our plan to RDC, and we will be on the call to answer any specific questions. I will, when we go through the presentation, I'll be sharing that screen. For those of you who are online through your computer, you should be able to see that. Again, for the opportunity, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Davies. Mr. Henderson?
Nakatan anigi di kudo sinantay RDC Chairman Ricky Nez. Ado in the Kato Satagi Thomas Walker Jr. Do batasan tanigi committee members Arnold Sohe do do aro bandas nishigi. Da yaha she Al Henderson a nishia. Ashi a yahan shlehawasan a bashishin. Aro todich ni edash chedo tanis an edashinale. Bahas ato age shike ade nash Pernell Halona hashnan in the Ajipespasa an Ado in the Nan George de Yahanan na I adahod in Yaj go Ado Shananish Insen. Did it the net chamber of commerce gates that Allahan so go Yahabati he kre. Ado Kunil Ado Kunza Naholjish. Ako Ebni Yahegi jo Kodo Anhe at the today case of Anhe at that date, but not Yahan Hachindo in the Nick Aidan Lani aren't the Betani Nani. Aren't that our con naked had Niki Ebe cut nature or less. Nalia has Angishi, Adonanish has Angishi in yet date. According the Chamber of Commerce Secretary Dashitne, Board of Directors, Yahanal so say by occasion, Dobana so. Kunza holds Shako here, the Hadaso Anigi by Hens and all Njonogoshinasco Yat Eldit Sozumik how Ziggy the international Nikado was a Quinjanoch that be the store Kayagi Yat Eha at Tahara the deal Nito but Zilo that deal Nil. What are into the case here? Shnandai upon it Sodoli.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Watchman?
Shade, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, Shade, Derek, Watchman. It's us Indian, Tohana Bashis Chin, Auto Tutnazai, Ishichay, Kabash, and Ella. And I'm a professional advisor. My company is Sagebridge Hill Group, LLC, and I do consulting for different companies on and off reservation. My original home is over by Navajo, New Mexico, Tulodo, it's around where you're from. And so, but I support the Net Chamber of Commerce, and as was discussed here. Business is very, very important, and it has been for me. I've held a bunch of different hats, including being the CEO of Navajo Gaming. I was former CEO in the Net Power Authority. I have about 20 years of experience as a commercial banker with Chase Bank and Wells Fargo. And so, but these days I'm trying to use all my experience to help continue to build our Navajo economy, which I think is very, very important, especially for the private side. And so the Net Chamber is a very good vehicle to do that. So I'm glad to be here. So Yat Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and everybody else that's on the call. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. Mr. Begay? Mr. Begay? Okay, we'll go down. Anybody else on the call with us this morning from the President's Office? Department of Justice, Economic Development Office, Speaker's Office, Ms. Yako, introduce yourself.
Good morning, Chairman Nez, members of the Resources and Development Committee. Melinda Arvizo Siako, Legislative Staff Assistant for the Office of the Speaker on the line, and thank you and good morning.
Thank you. Anybody else? None. Hakushila, the purpose of this meeting, Shanantai, Ado, the Net Chamber of Commerce. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Delegate James Shanana.
Koro Nihel Honiki on the Benebig Corona Bikiadil Tihiki Eyaha Corona Adan Lenigi Resource and Development Committee. The EK did at the Net Chamber of Commerce. Benahat Agi Lachit did the Nen Leniki Business Day Yoshige Dikito Dean Hilahot Ehegi Navajo Economy Kodo Yat Eho not 100 Dasto Kodo Banachan Bake Edit Lasiki Dik at Con the Cosson Sarnas Nehigi Benina Ehit Anshanat Agi Kodo De Sidil RDC requests how the Net Chamber of Commerce's plan to help Navajo-owned businesses and Navajo economy recover the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ako gisakoro benigesa nitlido satoshin nabikiel tikoe hotoshin dadin. So please keep your phones on mute unless you have a presentation or a question. So Ado Yat Hipana, Honorable Vince James, Shanala Koroshin Hijeta Hodils. So introduce yourself, Honorable James.
Good morning, Yat Resource Development Committee. Ado Shekha Hosting Cloisnos I. This is Vince James, Ado Twittering in Sonson, Jenny Bashishin, Kia Ani Dashacheda Hanalani Dashanale. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable James. Ashe Yaha Koro presentation Niki Nihichin Hodol Mr. Derek Watchman and Liddell Davies. You have the floor to discuss the Net Chamber of Commerce's ARPA plan to help Navajo-owned businesses recover from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. And on the next bullet point is the plan of action the chambers would like to achieve in helping our Navajo economy recover. So with that, Mr. Watchman, Ms. Davies, you have the floor. We did, Mr. Watchman, we did receive the PowerPoint presentation, and Ms. Begay, if you would please send this to Chairman Otto So and also Honorable Vince James. Thank you. So you have the floor, Mr. Watchman.
Mr. Chair and members of the RDC and other honorable delegates from the 24th Nomination Council, Yade. Ms. Davies is going to share her screen so that we can go through it. So, Liddell, can you do that? Again, Derek Watchman, and many of you know me. I'm not new to Navajo Nation. I've spent all of my career being a business person, and I've had many fortunate opportunities to work with the nation and work off the reservation. I'm very proud to have been a part of most recently the Navajo Nation Gaming Enterprise. I was the CEO and responsible for building the 4 casinos that are now built on the reservation. And that took a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I was very
happy. Sir, Could you
Yes, sir.
speak a little louder or turn up your volume?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm very happy to be here and to present the Net Chambers plan. We obviously were very involved in trying to provide guidance for the CARES Act, and so it's no question, sir, and members of the RDC, that the American Rescue Plan provides a lot of capital. I'll say a lot to the Navajo Nation, and so one of the big purposes for the chamber is to advocate and to ensure that our business and our small businesses are supported, they are assisted. And so the plan that we have today basically covers several points, and I'll get into that through this presentation. But overall, as we know, the American Rescue Plan, especially for the relief, provides over 1.8 billion. That's the first start to the Navajo Nation. As I'm hearing, other funding is coming directly to the nation. We also know that roughly 10 billion is available for tribes, where if you put your plan together and proposal, there's opportunities to secure proposals from other parts of the American Rescue Plan. But today, we would really like to engage and present to you in more detail the plan. We did present this, Mr. Chairman and members of our RDC, to the Navajo Committee in April, but we thought it'd be very important to get into more detail. Our plan basically is to help Navajo-owned businesses not only recover, but also grow and get out of this COVID-19. Many businesses, because of the actions of the nation, are still not operational. We just saw the other day, the flea markets are now starting to open. There's still questions about tourism and whether or not, we can have a fully fledged tourist business. And so our mission is to support those businesses. We do work a lot with the surrounding chambers. And so in many cities and towns across the country have local chambers. And so we've been working with the Flagstaff Chamber, the Gallup Chamber, Farmington, and basically what we do is to help support and help provide information, especially to our leaders, especially to the Navajo Nation Council and the president, because our leadership are the ones that help to improve the environment, to help make laws that help get our businesses going. And so we have a plan of action here that we think is important, and I think that will help meet and grow our business. Some of the things that we want to also say is that our plan, we believe, meets the guidance that was recently published by the U.S. Department of Treasury, and that's always a big thing. Does our plan work? And so I basically pulled from the website the language that pertains to providing assistance to small businesses. And so if you get into the detail, loans and grants and assistance, technical assistance, counseling, all those are eligible expenses. And what that basically means is that so long as that these expenses help to bring those businesses that are impacted by COVID-19 back to life and to grow. And so we have spoken to many people. We've been listening a lot to our businesses. And so the plan that we're putting forth today, we think is a good start to help grow our business. And if you look at the statistics nationwide, they say that over 50% of all the jobs in the United States basically are small businesses. And that's our goal, is to get as many small businesses going, so that not only do we have a private economy, but we have jobs, And when you have a profitable, sustaining business, you have basically on Navajo, you have tax revenues, you have business site lease fees. All goes into creating a viable, healthy, robust economy. We did hear the other day that ARPA, with the 1.8 billion, provides a very, very huge investment, significant investment to the Navajo Nation. But one thing that we heard, I think this was at the Fortified Agency Council the other day, there's a question about whether or not we have the capacity, the capacity with all the business on Navajo to get the job done. And I think it was mentioned that we as a nation may have to rely on outside construction companies, engineers, architects, because there's just so much business here. And so we understand that, but we think that the plan that we have helps build the capacity of our Navajo-owned businesses. Can you go to the next slide, Fidel? I pulled up this morning the Navajo Nation source list. There's 275 businesses that are registered with Navajo Business Regulatory. I think also the RDC, as a report from the Economic Development Division, reported that 6,000 businesses were registered through the CARES Act. And so our thought as a chamber is we have to build the capacity so that our 6,000 registered businesses, but more so our 275 businesses that are registered on the June 2021 source list have benefits. And I think, to me, it's no question that many people sign up to be on the business regulatory list because they want, and so as well as my company, we would like to get some business and do business with the Navajo Nation. That's why you have these 275 businesses. That's their goal, because the Navajo Nation expends millions and millions of dollars for contracts and services. And with the ARPA, over 1.8 billion will be available. It's the Chamber's goal when we get into the expenditures of ARPA, our goal is that all 6,000 businesses and all the 275 June 2021 registered businesses, I'll say, get a piece of the action. And what that means is that when a business gets a contract, either to provide some consulting or to be a contractor, to be an engineer, to be an architect, that money comes to us and we spend it locally. We think that's very important. The alternative is to basically hire a company, a non-Navajo company, off the reservation. They'll certainly they'll get the job done, but what they'll do is that the profits that they make will be spent in their area and not on the reservation. And that profit basically is the investment that is needed to grow our economy. So our plan is to help build the capacity here on the reservation so that we can be a part of the investment that the $1.8 billion will provide here on the Navajo Nation. So let's go to the next slide. As we presented, Mr. Chairman and Shinadad, members of the committee and others, we presented a $100 million plan. And this was basically in reply to the speaker and his team. They came to us and said, how can we put together a plan so that we support our Navajo-owned businesses? And we thought about it, we deliberated. We looked at the services that are provided currently by other entities like Navajo CDFI, Change Labs. There's some local community development corporations, CDCs, and our very own Navajo Nation Division of Economic Development. And so what we saw, and this is how we created our plan, was that we thought that so that we don't compete with anybody else, we said we have to put a plan together that helps augment, that helps support what the other entities are doing. So in thinking through that, we put together this 8-point plan that I'll get into detail. And the cost of this is roughly $100 million. And if you look at 100 million out of 2 billion, it's a small percentage. But if you think about it, with this small investment, it'll certainly benefit the 6,000 businesses that are registered and do business here, or who need to do business here on the reservation. So let me get into our plan as quickly as I can. Next slide. The first big issue here on the reservation, and we hear it all the time, is that it's really, really difficult to get a loan. And if you go down to the branch in Window Rock, here in Window Rock, if you ask them, how many business loans do you have? My guess, and it's the guess of the chamber, that probably very, very little. Big banks like Wells Fargo, B of A, they just don't want to do lending on the Navajo Nation for many reasons. But the big reason is that it's really tough for a national bank to put together a loan for a business here on the reservation because of sovereign immunity, because of the business courts, and basically because of the legal environment. And so the alternative to handle that problem is to put together a loan guarantee fund. And so our proposal is a $25 million loan guarantee fund. And it's actually almost similar to the Bureau of Indian Affairs loan guarantee fund. The problem with that fund is that Congress only does about $11 million a year. That's supposed to handle all the business activity in the United States. Here on Navajo, since we are going to have a $1.8 billion opportunity, in order to get our businesses ready to go, so they have the line of credit, they have the revolvers ready. And what that means is that when you hire a Navajo contractor, they need a short-term loan so that they can buy the equipment, they can buy the supplies, they can hire their labor, get them going. And then once they get their pay application in, then they get paid. So there's that little time period where they need outside money. And so our $25 million loan guarantee program, we believe, which would be structured almost like the BI loan guarantee program, it will enable over $125 million in loans to be done on the reservation. Now, what that means basically is basically revolving lines of credit, short-term lines of credit, which is very, very important, because there's been talk about sometimes it takes time for the nation to pay its contractors. This is basically the short-term infusion of capital so that our businesses, again, can buy the equipment and get ready so that they can perform on their contract. So that's our first plan, and it works. The BI loan guarantee program works. And so what we also want this program to do is to help Navajo CDFI. The Navajo CDFI has a proposal in, they need more capital to lend to our Navajo businesses. So the loan guarantee fund will help support what Navajo CDFI does. Next slide. The other challenge that we've been hearing is basically the ability for our Navajo businesses to get a bond or a performance bond. And as a former banker, basically a performance bond basically is I'll call it a standby letter of credit or a standby loan. And so many of our businesses here on Navajo have a hard time securing a performance bond. And the reason for that is that a lot of these bonding companies are very uncomfortable and very unfamiliar with lending to a business on the reservation. It's similar to what Wells Fargo and these other big banks go through. And that is that, if we have a loan on the reservation, if there is a challenge, if there's a default, how do we get our money back? And a lot of these big financial institutions and these bonding companies have a hard time understanding how to legally make whole on obligation. So our plan for our performance bond is very similar to what the U.S. Small Business Administration provides, and basically it's almost like a co-signer to a loan. And so our plan is with $10 million, we believe that we could co-sign. I'll use the word co-sign, but we could help support over 100 million in bonding capacity. Now it's going to take some work. It's going to take some work when we get this program going. We're going to have to do our own underwriting to make sure that the business can perform, the business has the qualifications. But once we get to that point, this performance bond fund, we believe, will support and will help the outside company do a bond for our very own Navajo businesses here on the reservation. And so we think that this is very, very important. And this is a big issue that keeps coming up all the time. And I personally have talked to bonding companies off the reservation. And basically they tell me that, it's really hard, Mr. Watchman, they tell me it's really hard because we just don't understand how the laws of Navajo work. We don't understand if there's a problem. How do we get our loan paid back? This basically is a third-party measure to help get those companies to do business with our Navajos here on the reservation. So that's our plan number 2. Next slide. This slide here basically is we are proposing a Navajo Executive Corps program. Now, this is very similar to what the small business SBDICs provide, the Executive Corps. What we want to do is use $9 million and hire talented Navajo businesses who are on call, who would support the Navajo businesses that are out there. We have great talented Navajo business professionals, and some of them basically want to go to work here at home to help other businesses. And so the Small Business Administration does that around the country. They hire professional teams. They're on standby. So say, for example, a Navajo business needs some help with a business plan, or needs some help with understanding or building their accounting system, or setting up, a subsidiary. This Navajo Executive Corps program would be ideal. Basically, they'll call the chamber. We have an executive on staff who say, okay, Mr. Navajo or Ms. Navajo executive, you are going to be assigned to this business out in Shiprock, or out in Tuba City, or out in Chinle. So basically, it's support right there. And so we think that's very, very important. A lot of times, these Navajo businesses, they don't know who to call. Or they do call someone and say, well, I'm going to have to charge you, $100, $200 an hour. We would have that service available so that our businesses, when they have a problem, they'll pick up the phone, do a text, or however we set up the communication so that they're available and to help. I personally get calls, and I try to do my best, but I only can do so much because a lot of it is pro bono and it's for free. And so we want to basically get these Navajo business professionals ready to go. It also helps support our Navajo businesses, especially the ones that maybe need more work. It gets them contracts so that they can help their fellow Navajo businesses. So we think that it's very important, on-call assistance. Next slide. We did hear the other day, and I think our Navajo Nation leadership is basically suggesting that we have access to 1.8 billion. That's money that's coming to the nation. There's also roughly $10 billion that's available. However, you have to put together your proposals, you have to put all the paperwork, and you apply. Right now, there's a shortage. There's a shortage of grant writers out there. And I know personally several The problem that they have is that a lot of folks that are putting together the grants just don't have enough financial capacity to get the right people. So the chamber proposes with 5 million, and with 5 million, we believe that we can help roughly 75 applications. If we get together these Navajo professionals, we get them staff, and they help put together these grants. Now, grant writing is an art, and we all know that. And with 10 billion available for tribes around the country, we think that with 5 million, we could put together 75 applications. Now, this could be from the chapters, this could be, you know, from our CDCs. I know that there's a Community Development Corporation in Chinle, there's one in Shiprock. We believe that if we can hire a team, we can help assist and get access through proposals. You know, there's money from the USDA program, there's money from BIA, there's money from the Administration for Native Americans, there's money from Department of Energy, there's funding available. And so to get that, you have to put together the writing. So we want to be a part of that as a chamber. We want to help support getting funding because it is available. So we believe 5 million would be enough to support 75 applications. There's more available out there, but this is a start. So next slide. We've gone round and round this, but our big plan in this is putting together Navajo economic recovery centers. And so what we see right now, especially for the professional consultants, there's no place to go. For the tourists and the artists and the small artisans, you know, the flea markets or being by Monument Valley or Chinle, that's their place of business. But for the businesses that provide consulting, like the accountants or the micro business person, there's not a place for them to do their business. And so when you go to a city, like for some of us go to Washington, D.C., I use this. When I go to Washington, D.C. for business, sometimes I need a place to print and I need a place to do a business. There's a company called WeWorks, and you go, they basically go to Washington, D.C., they rent an entire floor, and they have that available. So when I go to Washington, D.C., I go to WeWorks, I spend $50, and I have access to a small meeting room. I have access to coffee and refreshments for my clients. I have a place to print. We want to do that here on the Navajo Nation. We think that there's hundreds of businesses that are basically working from home and they just don't have the technical capacity. So in working with the Navajo shopping centers, we think that facilities in Shiprock, Tuba City, Window Rock, Crown Point, Chinle, and Kayenta, where you can go. And with COVID still here, but COVID lifting, basically you come to the Navajo Economic Recovery Center. You know, you pay a small fee, but you have access to internet. You can print. You can have a meeting. You can use, you know, the facilities. You can do things there, and we think that's very, very important, especially for our younger Navajo businesses. We think there's quite a few out there. So we'd like to, with the ARPA money, expend $24 million to put together these business centers. We think that's very, very important in a positive way, impactful to our Navajo businesses. So that's our step number 5 in our plan. Number 6, let's go number 6, Adele. This one is interesting, but the chamber, again, when we deliberated what's really needed, there's a great program that was put together several years ago, and it's called the Opportunity Zones. And so, however, when you look at whether or not Opportunity Zones have benefited the Navajo Nation, the answer is not. And so, but basically, an opportunity zone, which about half of Navajo is a opportunity zone. What that means is that if you have an opportunity zone, you can get capital from an investor, and they put this money into what is called an opportunity zone fund. And so I'll use, for example, someone like Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos or the guy that's going to go to space pretty soon. They have a lot of capital, and because the stock market has been doing very well, they have huge gains. And so, but when you make an investment and you have a gain, that gain is subject to a tax. The Opportunity Zone Fund was created so that if you have dollars that are considered a capital gain, you can take those dollars and put it into an Opportunity Zone Fund. If you do that, your capital gains tax is 0. And I think the capital gain tax is 30%. So if you make $100 million in capital gains, immediately it's taxed at 30%. But if you put this 100 million, as an example, into a fund, that $30 million potential tax goes to 0. Now, one of the big problems, again, it goes to Indian country here on Navajo, is that a lot of folks are concerned about, is my investment safe on reservation lands? If this program is to be successful, our plan is, okay, we as Navajos, we have to put our money where our mouths are. Let's put up 15 million. We will start the fund. Then we will go out to outside investors and say, hey, look it, we have our money, put in your money, we'll leverage it together. So the chamber believes that if we put $15 million up as seed capital, we can lever that almost 4 times. So with $15 million, we can attract at least 60 million. And so what that basically means is that we have roughly $60 million to help support and help provide additional loans here on the reservation. And so when you look at small businesses around the country, many of these small businesses have used loans to grow. It gets back to the concept, as a lot of us learn in business school, use other people's money to grow. And so we believe that to jumpstart the Opportunity Zone program, a $15 million Navajo Opportunity Zone Fund can be created using ARPA, and that will help to lever over 60 million in loans. So that would be available to help support what Navajo CDFI does, and maybe some of the other loans that are out there. Native American Bank, Pinnacle Bank, there's a couple of the Great Western Bank. They have some loans here on the reservation. It's not enough. So this program of a $15 million Opportunity Zone Fund, we think is very, very important. Next question. Next slide, Adele. This one basically is a feasibility studies program for $7 million. It's a lot of our businesses have great ideas, but I know as a former banker that you have to take those ideas and put it into a feasibility study. A bank usually wants to have a third-party entity or individual verify whether or not the business idea has business and financial merit. And so in many cases, when you go to the bank, they'll say, okay, we need your financials, we need your history, and also we need a third-party feasibility study. And what basically that means is that a third party will verify whether or not the revenues make sense, the expenses make sense, and they verify whether or not the business has potential. And so what the banks do, what the financial people look at is, when the business gets started, can the business pay back the loan? That is the big question that a lot of these bankers and financial institutions look at. When and how, and can the business pay me back? So a $7 million feasibility study program, we believe, will help support 110 projects. And so without feasibility studies, it's really hard, it's really challenging for a bank, a financial institution, to make a decision about making that loan. So sometimes it's really hard to get, and sometimes feasibility studies get expensive. I know from the Navajo Nation through the Division of Economic Development, they try to do their feasibility studies, but they're not cheap. And so the reason why they're not cheap is that you're hiring business professionals to verify whether or not there's the market, whether or not there's enough people, whether or not the performance, the financial statements make sense, whether or not there's a good marketing program. So a $7 million feasibility study program, we think would be very valuable and help jumpstart many of these businesses that are out there and many of these businesses that need a third-party individual to tell the outside world, the financial institutions, that this plan works. So a $7 million program will support, we believe, 110 projects. Next slide. Now, to get this all done, we're proposing $5 million basically for administration for the chamber. And so one thing that I didn't say earlier is that the partnerships that we have with the chambers outside, Flagstaff, Farmington, those chambers are funded by membership fees that they charge their businesses. And so in the last year and a half, last 2 years, many of our businesses basically haven't been making any money. And so with no money, there's no fees. So we can't charge for them to be a member. So we are seeking $5 million so that we can rebuild our team, basically to help manage all the programs that I just talked about. So staffing is very, very important. We also want to provide and hire a full-time staff so that they can continue to market. One of the things that we see here is that there's many contract opportunities, there are many job opportunities, but it's really hard to find that. We really want to beef up our website so that if you come to the Diné Chamber website, you can say, oh, RFP, there's RFP available, maybe at Diné College or maybe with the Navajo Nation. We want to have that. We also want to have a job posting where if you go to our website, you'll see all the jobs that are available. We also want to put on our website opportunities for many of our businesses that maybe want to work with the federal government. There's a lot of opportunities with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Indian Health Service, Bureau of Land Management. But in many cases, some of the small businesses just don't have access to that. So we want to build and improve our website so that when you come to it as a member, you have all these potential opportunities. And so $5 million, it may not be enough, but we think it's important to help staff that. So that's basically our $100 million plan, but $5 million basically will help jumpstart our program. Next slide. There's some other issues that we wanted to present, and basically it's nothing new. I think last week and during the last couple months, there's been talk about the Navajo Business Opportunity Act, the Navajo Procurement Code, the Navajo Employment Preference Act, and so forth. We just want to reiterate that, first of all, we appreciate what the Division of Economic Development is doing. They've had 2 hearings so far, and they've been asking, what do you think, and is the Navajo Business Opportunity Act working? From the perspective of the Chamber, we believe that basically better information and enforcement of the Business Opportunity Act is important. We think it's important that we use Navajo businesses. We think that the Navajo Business Regulatory Department is on a good path. They've been telling the Navajo businesses that they want to improve the ability, they want to improve, they want to see more Navajo businesses going to work. And so basically from the Chamber, our position is that, we want to make sure that these business laws are enforced. We also basically we've been told, and you've heard, is that we need to ensure that we have a business-friendly rules and regulations. And so some of the things that have been put on the table is that a lot of our businesses, especially the contractors, they want to see prompt payment. So when you do work for the nation or for enterprise, usually you put on your invoice or your pay application net 30. And what that means is that, and it happens off the reservation. Basically, when a business sends the invoice in, they like to be paid within 30 days because they got bills to pay. I think the Navajo Nation, well, I know the Navajo Nation is sometimes slow, 4, 5, 6 months behind. So when a business invoices the nation and when they don't get paid until 6 months after the fact, that's just lost money. Basically, they can't pay their employees. If they have to buy materials and lumber or what have you, they just can't do that because they haven't been paid. So we want to reiterate that a business-friendly environment is really, really needed. There's also discussion about the timeliness of contracts and the 164 process and building codes. The Chamber believes that it's very important that if a business is hired, that the contracts get done quickly, because time is money, as we heard. The other issue we want to point out, and we see this with the U.S. federal government. When the U.S. federal government does a contract, the U.S. federal government mandates that some of that business should be through small businesses. For example, within the U.S. government, the mandate is that at least 23% of any money that comes from the federal government should go to a small business. We think that's a good tool, and so we would like and we recommend that the nation, with ARPA and going forward, basically says that for every dollar that the nation spends on a contract, a certain amount should go to a Navajo-owned business to keep the money home. And so what this does basically, when you hire a Navajo business, basically the money stays here, it's spent locally, it creates jobs, and it helps provide food on the table for our Navajo businesses that have families here on the reservation. So we think it's very important to consider set-asides. The next issue is just, we did hear that, for example, from the Navajo Division of Economic Development, they're planning to reopen the Navajo Business and Artisan Relief Program. And so I think what I heard was that they want to address those businesses that maybe didn't get benefits from the first round. What we're hearing from our businesses that the federal government provided 2 rounds of funding through the Payroll Protection Program. We're hearing from our businesses that, and they're recommending that the Navajo Nation should have a second go-round for the Navajo Business and Artisan Relief Fund. And it's not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but because our businesses have been down, almost March, April, May, almost 15 months. That means 15 months of no revenue. So we're urging from the council to consider a second round for the Business Artisan Relief Fund. That'll help a lot of our businesses get going again. And last but not least, and I said this earlier, the chamber would like to see the 6,000 registered businesses, and more so the 275 businesses that are on the June 2021 source list, that each and every one of them gets a contract, gets a purchase order, basically is asked to go to work and asked to provide for the Great Navajo Nation, and basically benefits from the $1.8 billion. We certainly can go off, and we've done it in the past. We can use non-Navajo businesses in Albuquerque and Salt Lake City, but at the end, that doesn't help us. It may be, they may provide, they may hire some Navajos for work, but what the key of this is the profits. When you hire a Navajo business, the profit that is made is spent locally. And so we think that's very, very important. That's what helps build economies. That's what you see in Farmington and Gallup. Those businesses and the profits that they make are reinvested. So You know, every time you go to Gallup, every time you go to Flagstaff, you see more businesses grow. That's because the profits are spent there. Here on the reservation, you know, because we use very few Navajos, there's not much profits that is spent here. So we think as a chamber that we have to change that altogether. And so I think that's it. Let's go to the next slide, Liddell. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Nez, we appreciate your time, and members of the RDC. That is basically our plan that we would like serious consideration from the Navajo Nation leadership. And I'll close with, it's very important that we invest in our Navajo businesses, because otherwise, without that, you know, we won't have sustainability. And what we really want to see here on the reservation is a viable economy, jobs, many businesses, so that you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay in your local area. You can buy what you need. You can get the service that you need. That's what you see in other towns off the reservation. So with that, Mr. Chairman and members of our RDC and members of the council, that is the Net Chamber of Commerce's plan. So we're open for questions. So
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any comments or questions for the Net Chamber of Commerce? Other colleagues that are on the line, you're more than welcome to ask questions as well. Mr. Watchman, could you also expound on how this WeWorks will work at each of the pretty much locations that you had talked about? Could you talk about that some more, the incubator locations? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the Resource Development Committee, and other leaders of the council. It's very important to have a place of business where you have all the resources available. I myself, for example, I work from home, but I don't have the ability to have a meeting. My internet sometimes doesn't work, or I don't have printing capacity, you know, to make copies. And so there's several companies out there. One that I'm familiar with is called WeWorks. Basically, what they've done is that they've gone to different cities and they basically rented space, and they've taken that space and they've created various sizes of conference rooms. They basically created nice bathrooms. They put in their nice high capacity printers. They have equipment so that you can do video conferencing. So a business can go over there and rent some space for a few hours. There is some space there where you can rent and have an office there full time. And so the plan is to work with the Navajo shopping centers, and they have a lot of space that's available, but they also want to grow. So we want to work with them to either lease or rent some space and basically put together a facility where a small business can come in and have the capacity to do a meeting in a room, to have a conference room, to basically do printing, to have access to internet. And so the WeWorks concept and company is doing actually very well around the country. And so we think that with many of the businesses that are maybe working from home, if we can give them a place to do business, either on a somewhat permanent basis or on an hourly basis, that it'll give them the tools that they need to grow their business. And so we have talked to, for example, the Navajo Shopping Centers board. They like this idea. And so what that means basically that it's basically incubation. You basically provide the environment to where the small business person can do his business and grow. And so conceptually, that's what we want to do. So basically the 24 million is to buy the equipment, how it worked with shopping centers to build the space. And so, having a nice facility, nice conference room does make a big difference. Makes a big difference. And so that's our concept and plan, Mr. Chairman and members of the RDC. So for the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. Sunanda, honorable members of RDC, do you have any comments or questions for the Net Chamber of Commerce? Chairman. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, go ahead.
Chairman, though, committee members, and then colleagues that are on this call, and our support team, though, the staff. Although the presenters also from the Net Chambers of Commerce, Mr. Watchman, Mr. Curley, Shatado, Al Henderson, got so name nasa that song Mr. Watchman, thank you for the PowerPoint and presentation you provided. It brings hope, to Navajo people, Navajo leadership. I, for one, certainly begin thinking hopefully, and I listened to some of the plans to be as far as recuperating, rehabilitating from this pandemic, terrible pandemic, devastating, disabling pandemic in every way possible. It did harm to the great Navajo Nation and to the world. To talk about recovery, rehabilitation, although of course recuperating, and of course healing. That there's that healing, there's that hopefulness that is coming back. So that's what I'm thinking this morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members and audience presenters. Okay, so just a question, then I probably will have other questions or comments later on. But on sustaining the plan that was presented here by the Net Chambers of Commerce, to sustain this beyond 3 years, the life of the ARPA funding, the ARPA program and opportunity that's to come, that has come here, to sustain that beyond the ARPA money. Again, I'd be interested in listening to that and talking about that. If it's a worthwhile endeavor, worthwhile effort, if it's a critical investment Navajo is to make, then we have to think about sustaining it. The Chambers of Commerce. So that's my question, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Mr. Watchman, your response.
Yeah, I can't have Chairman Nez and Vice Chair Walker for the question and members of the RDC. We did have that question. In fact, the chair and vice chair of the chamber asked the very same thing. How do we ensure that once the 3 years is up, that we have a viable, sustaining program? And so there's a couple answers to that, and that is that I mentioned earlier that the chambers around the country and locally, they are sustained with fees and generosity of the businesses. So when a business gets started, it uses the chamber to grow. It uses the chamber to get customers. The business then provides a fee, but it also helps support, does donations or grants to the chamber so that it can help others. We see that around the country, especially for the larger businesses. They've been helped so much that they help support their chambers. So that's our goal, to have viable businesses that reinvest in other businesses through the chamber. The other area is just when you look at all the grants and programs that come out of not only the federal government but locally, there is usually a huge pipeline and hefty grants and opportunities out there. We have been missing that, not only as a nation but as local businesses. So there's been plenty of grant opportunities to apply to, and so we think that as we build the staff, we can continue to write for grants and contracts well past the 3 years. We think that's important. On the financial side, with the performance bond and the loan guarantee program, there's always going to be need for capital. There's always going to be need for loans. And so the loan support program that we put together will go way past, we think, the term of the American Rescue Plan. And so many of the small businesses in this country and locally, they can't grow unless they have access to borrowed money. And so that basically will happen for the long haul. And so we think that the loan guarantee program has a long potential life, the performance bond. And so the challenges is that if a business goes under, you could lose some capital. But if you put together the right team and you do proper underwriting, we think we can minimize and mitigate any potential for losses. And so that's a program. You have to put good people together. And so the other thing is that it's very interesting here on the reservation in that in order for our businesses to grow, we have to work together. And if you look on the outside, the Small Business Administration has really helped small businesses. Here on the reservation, we're hoping that the Small Business Administration and the Navajo Division of Economic Development and the Chamber, we continue to be a team. We continue to work. And by doing so, by collaborating and with the other entities, Change Labs, the Net College, Navajo CDFI, NTU, if we continue to work, we can build more businesses. By doing that, there's revenues that's generated. One of the things that we see is that we know that in the Navajo General Fund budget, there is a big black hole, as I call it. And that basically is the revenues that were lost because of the closure of the Navajo Generation Station. So if we can create enough businesses where taxes are collected, there should be enough. If you create enough businesses, the sales tax that's generated can fill that $40 million black hole. We're confident that could happen. The more businesses you create, the more revenues that are created, the more that goes to the nation. And that in turn will help support our business economy, and of course the chamber. So it's just a matter of, getting creative and being steadfast and working hard. And so we mentioned earlier that the chamber was created in 2013. It's been a long haul for the chamber. It's just like a small business. It's been tough getting this business, this nonprofit support advocacy group off the ground. It's similar to a lot of the Navajo businesses that we see out there. So if we continue to work together, we think that there's a long life ahead of us. And then, of course, the other thing is just continue to work with our leadership in Congress. We've actually met with, like you all have, we met with Senator Kelly. We met with Congresswoman Fernandez Ledger. We worked with O'Halloran, and we've been saying that, there's got to be additional support for our businesses here on the reservation. And so we got those channels open, and they understand that the lifeblood of most economies is the small business sector. So we think that by basically doing a full court press on all that, we can have great sustainability well past the expiration of the American Rescue Plan dollars. So that's, I guess, a real short answer to the sustainability question. So Delegate Walker for the question.
Mr. Chairman, this is Al Henderson, and I'm listening in on this nice and healthy conversation and some questions that are coming up. If you may allow me, I'd like to add a couple of points to Derek's response regarding Vice Chairman Walker's question on sustainability. May I?
Good morning, Mr. Henderson. It's good to hear from you. And yes, we will go ahead and give you some time to also add some additional response. So you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, members of the RDC committee and support staff. I have been involved pretty deeply in the Net Chamber of Commerce's ability and sustainability issues, and especially focusing on Vice Chairman Walker's question, which is appropriate and timely. A couple of things to add to Derek's response is the work that we've been doing to set up a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. This will be an add-on to the IRS C6 designation with, and having the Internal Revenue Service nonprofit status that we have enjoyed so far. The 501c3 will allow us to get involved in at some level investing in small businesses or other businesses, and to be part of the profit-making ring of recipients. In other words, if we are 20% owner, 50% owner, or even 100% where we start our own businesses and make money, I do believe that the IRS ruling says that we can do that so long as the profit is being used for the intended purpose of the 501c6. So that's one avenue that we're looking at, and I'm personally involved in trying to get that particular status underway. So that's one part of it. Number two has to do with the plan that involves the establishment of the Opportunity Zone Fund. What we understand from a member of our chamber from California, is an attorney who's a member, he is looking into the eligibility of opportunity zones for Indian country across the United States. And what we're looking at is a legal information to see if tribes were in line to be designated entirely on its trust status as opportunity zones. And we believe that the election may have what with is the designations of opportunity zones that were made by states. If we go ahead and do the opportunity zone designation, or by unveiling and reminding the Biden administration that we believe that we may have been involved in getting an opportunity zone designation authority by respective tribal authorities, like, for example, the council and the president, etc. We may either get an extension, or we may be able to go ahead and get an opportunity zone designation ability. The problem there, not so much a problem per se, is that the opportunity zone must have a fund that's in place with a funder. There's a lot of funders across the country, and that funder will be able to receive a project for any particular projects that can be approved and supported by, say, tribes or individual investors within Indian country, so that they can be part of the eligible funds for investment purposes beyond December the 31st of this year. So the opportunity zone as it is now, we understand, is set to be expiring at the end of this year. And whatever fund that's in those opportunity zone funds, say, for example, if the Navajo Nation 15 million is in there, that will become eligible, plus other investors who may be interested in tribal projects. I don't know how many DED projects has listed that may become eligible for it. So maybe, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Vice Chairman, members of RDC, you might have your legal team look into those possibility of an extension, or have a separate support from Congress to have the opportunity zone designated specifically for Indian country, inclusive of the Navajo Nation entirely. So thank you very much, and I wish all of you the best. I am going to sign off because I have a dental appointment that I must tend to. So I thank you very much, and I look forward to meeting all of you again sometime soon.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Good to hear from you as well, and supporting Navajo businesses and the work that you do. We certainly appreciate that very much. Honorable Begay, you're next.
Chairman, you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I wish that all the key staff or board listening all the way through to a conversation, because they're asking for millions and millions of dollars. But nonetheless, the key thing, Shishazindo Kodo, Kojet Ote, Do Blagana, that Inishiji Aji, Hotene, Kodo Chahot, Aniki, Yat Eshi O, a Koko, the Aquakin Hidden on Nishikila Echit, Kodo, Kato, propose or settle this. Meaning that today President signed in Italy to reopen the parks door. Ado Kodos at Hitanen Leniki again that the Kaido base of this. Koji Laki Be Kodo Banan Sto you that you suddenly want. You know, there are a lot of our Navajo people are silversmithing or rug weavers, pottery maker, and everything else. And then also some of our Navajo people are into ranching. Because that kodo the banda hani the beta Ado kodo tada the gesho konka tlata shidne kinada ikie. Kwachini hin hit the nehaki the majority gila hit. Oh, baka ilie do this. Eye go shishin ne. Chihot kodon hit the nen linki. He masan hit che. Jashi kwaje do yeta hotel zindan the kwakin base on the hiki do hit ashin kodo do shibe incorporation go ilnishtato the land linigi sato fuels the economy. I mean, I think that's the way it is. I mean, those are the majority of the people that fuel some of these activity on the Navajo Nation. Akoko ilache, if it kodo, I could probably hear that a lot of our visitors have seen the artwork of our Navajo people, and they always say sometimes that probably that they make this plan just so that they visit the Navajo Nation and actually buy authentic jewelry or any product that the Navajo Nation are well known for. Ako elachit ego ko kodon hisato baka oje dodle. And that's one sector within the Nay Chamber. Jota nepe the beta dinoche. Ako the nagi beta the joji go ghost. Aji unhin the nash bahayot na dodle. Maybe it is good. I mean, I see it because I've always we RDC had met several times at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Albuquerque. How it works and how they've been successful is a partnership of overall. Any speaker, Bishop Ada Tananas Tane, Ako Erit Ashin Sato, that's it, Neka and Nadwa Aj, not the Nabat, as far as not the Nandinigi, Nakri Aja Hit Ashi, the Hot Hagi, Akon, she hot ne Lana Winson. Ado Kodo, especially the Navajo Nation Arts and Craft, the Queen Shibe, which I see. Kodo, at the same time, it is good that they're selling clothing, but let's not brand or name or Navajo Arts and Craft in somebody else's kojedi chatado khashatat agent in the hanihit or hayu agent that we're promoting them more than our Navajo jewelries and products. No. Okay, why isn't that our arts and craft not at any of these high-end jewelry stores across the United States? If you go to Old Town in Scottsdale, nothing but Navajo jewelry. Owners are these foreign country people. In Albuquerque and so on. But if you go to bigger cities, Native American jewelry, almost half of it is probably non-Navajo, made in China or Taiwan. Showcase a bit now. Hit alla papa hatsi tolli to hit apa ha to se tolli aje to hane lan la peson leniki papa ke ha se tolli aje. Chairman of the RDC members, I know this was done the prior council, but CDFI office and double and long Kodona in the midst of base of Chokotaliane. Eda Shahit out the Inish Okoko if the Navajo Nation has made a position to give 20 million to a non-Navajo even without an office, I mean, why is it that we will be hesitant to give funding to our own Chamber of Commerce? So they that Kodo bahanda etiketo satin seta is kesiki that at the call a baby not just a zero it's not necessarily that you have to say this. I mean, I respond, but I believe that you all need to really put an effort to focus on our majority of our Navajo people that does do their business at home. Ajin dan tenen liniki ko kodo ye go ni glido which hoti glis na Navajo so hada shin ka on the da go shin kodo peso which be stati nessa ko ediki to ko agin habaka to just ashon the do ye go aj be ha tet out a hosle hesto Johnny Okada PPP na kodo PPP loan had Niki Kodo Division Economic Development had no system in place where a lot of our Navajo people were left out in getting a lot of these hardship of these businesses. Ado Kodo Nle the Nebanda in the as you know Monument Valley, Four Corners, that the hot NJ Grand Canyon. Adon de Sedona, that the hot on hit net or you that the gate or jewelry a coco yego bahayos nato aj. Now the other thing that I always ask the question, okay, these are the middle person, these are the middle sector, because you got the end of the buyer, and then you got the kodo the jewelry maker e bahayos na the store konle wanted that energy konle and then have a variety of jewelry, and you know that one person cannot. I'm sure some are multitasking and doing a lot of different works, but there's a niche of our Navajo people are very highly qualified, and you know that some of these Navajo people are well known for making these very rare type of jewelries. Ako edas iniki koto banayi na ako kote the nan liniki ajohit ada anihita. Some type of data to I guess authenticate and register them to be a known jewelry maker. So kodat ego kodo yego to hajon here what londa even not distinct net or you other bakata is what any basis on done as they had done ko to not that either to kodo to house in the no. So I made a suggestion because I know arts and craft all these silver door ishi supplies in the ishi. I know the Thunderbird in Gallup. I know this just because I was and I probably still can do jewelry. What else other Indian jewelry that you got to have a card just so that you get some form of a discount when you continue buying on a daily basis. RDC members, if you're not really don't know about Indian jewelry or supplies, visit some of these jewelry supplies or these equipments that you'll run into a lot of our Navajo people buys a lot of these equipment and silvers and nickels and golds and everything else, turquoise, yigo, and the sato, nandiniki, yego kodo sato, benda look, to benda at Navajo, actually, nothing, because you already know if it's a real turquoise or not. Or coral that ehaki channel inlet that eniki ita aneliki cluster that ehaki ko that ehaki de nisiki hitne aj bahayot na to banahayot na to shin other koto that tohin that konanat. I know some well-known people that sells their well done rugs that they sell them at these auctions in Santa Fe. The creation auction that that the care. Ako ede kodo shipana in shika. Do how na she be I'd like to hear a full detail of how you've been making contact with these individuals, of what they were input and how you're going to help them and develop this particular sector of the Navajo Chamber of Commerce. Chairman, appreciate the time.
Honorable Begay. Mr. Watchman, your response?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Delegate Kealan Begay. There's a lot in your question, but let me try to answer this in a couple ways. One is that we do see and we do recognize that there's a tremendous market out there for ranchers and the artisans, the rug makers, and the silversmith. And so we've been trying to work with Navajo Arts and Crafts, and so we're trying to form that relationship. And so and that's an untapped area, and that one we're still trying to figure out how to provide beneficial and good service to that area. And so a lot of it gets back to what we think is collaboration. It gets back to trying to figure out how to understand it. To me, it's a supply chain, from the business books, it's a supply chain change challenge. And so how do we get to market the ranchers that grow animals? How do we get to market the artists that make rugs, that make jewelry? How do we get those to the markets? There's a big market out there, we know, from the tourists. They come to Navajo. And so how do you organize that? So that's something that we've been kind of throwing around, and how do you address that? And so but what we're hearing today is we just got to get more forceful and sit down with, like, for example, Navajo Arts and Crafts, talk with them, and how do we work together, and how do we figure out how to define and build the supply chain? Is it more internet marketing? Is it more dealing with like the big companies, Nordstrom or whoever sells these big the jewelry? How do we form relationships with them? So that's our goal. But our start is we have to get further organized. We would love to have a building like what the Hispaniola Chamber of Commerce has in Albuquerque, and we know that they've done that by basically through a team staff. They've been applying for all kinds of grants, and those grants have been successful to allow them to have an office in Albuquerque. That's the goal of the chamber, is to get enough support so that we can build a structure where we can house our businesses. We can work with Navajo CDFI. We can have a resource center that is not government. And so that's kind of one thing that we want to emphasize, that it's a nonprofit, non-government operation. That's our goal. So we'd like to get there. And so if we get a facility and we get the resources, we can start to address how to certify, for example, Navajo artisan. We have had some conversations with, for example, Labatt and the Navajo Beef program. That program's been interesting. It's been a long time coming, but if you look at what Labatt and the ranchers out at Newlands, how they put that together, if you look at it, it's been structured. They put together the cattle, they've certified it, and so now you have certified Navajo beef by working with that firm. So that certification program, that process, has allowed for the beef to sell at a higher price. If you look at that model, we think if we can take that and apply that to other beef ranchers, maybe even lamb, and even how our rugs and our silversmiths put together, if you take that model, we think that we can provide a bigger market outside. So it does take work, but we think we can address that. And so it just gets back to understanding and getting the right team, opening up the markets, understanding the supply chain, having a place of business, and then providing the resources behind it. Many of these businesses need short-term loans. They need short-term capital so that they can buy the silver or buy the feed. And so when they do that with a short-term loan, when they get paid back, they pay the loan back and then they make the profits. And so it's a long process. And so, you know, where the Net Chamber is still fairly young, and our Navajo business economy is still fairly young for the most part. And so, but I'll end here with it. It just takes more conversations like we're doing here. It takes support. It takes resources. And so the Navajo business sector would be a lot better if it was supported by our Navajo government and our leaders, we think. And that way, that collaboration moves us ahead so that we can, you know, basically have great jewelry, great ranchers out there. And so, but I'll end there because, you know, this question is tough, and I think everybody's been asking, you know, what are the answers? And so if we look at some models out there, if we follow it, we think we can grow our Navajo economy and our Navajo business in all sectors. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman, but thank you for the question, Delegate Keon-Begay. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. Honorable Begay, do you have a follow-up question?
Chairman, I do appreciate the response, but Joe Kodo Nitnan Diniki be Sato by Bakai, the key base of Bandit. I guess that's focus. And as you know, Chairman, the RDC members, I always say chapter, no, and this time is for this area, again, it's going to be Navajo people. Yes, if it's just focused on just the business, we don't need a small niche of people will be only benefiting. Less than 1%, less than 2% or something, maybe. But if we go all out in helping our Navajo people, based on why not double the amount that's being asked for? I mean, there's got to be a strategy and a convincing statement that the Nate Chamber of Commerce really needs to do in helping the Navajo people. Businesses prosperous on the Navajo Nation. No, even expanding out of our Navajo people's workmanship. The authentic jewelry makers. And they told not all you think jewelry and then get the haki. You see a gun, a door, a net, and then get all you are the cut at the car. There's one area that I know that you let that to Gallup jail with that. A lot of these businesses, wholesalers, you are the jewelry stores. If you go into Gallup wholesales, the Bakasa, there's just a nashed up a date. No, baby, Lezuni, all wholesale that the Bakata. If you go in there, there's a small cage in Halon, the packet. The only way that you can go in is if you're going to be if you're a wholesaler. Half of that, other wholesalers they get that standards not that the men didn't not any. So that's how much of a lot of our Navajo people are being ripped off of these jewelries ako elakit elat ehinsen johat en joe at na appe sana hiton jun zong shapen na aje jo peso iten zong shapen na kada kot abanda inni. But I believe that the Navajo people shouldn't be ripped off in selling their jewelries. Sita kato na kada the cow but that India peso baby chokodal hadet ale sato koto yego ba iling koto to dit up jewelry linki to ban hani to elan hit kwa ke ben ke bakha to jot I in saskisi disnati ko ta ko to ba nasi to the chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Mr. Watchman.
Mr. Chairman, again, Kat and members of the RDC, and the question from Delegate Keon Begay. A couple thoughts come to mind, especially when we, from the viewpoint of the Net Chamber. I think it goes without saying that our artisan maybe have been forgotten, and so it reminds me of why Navajo Arts and Crafts was created. I think it's called the Navajo Guild, way back, before the Navajo Arts and Crafts. That whole project was created to help create a sustainable market for our Navajo silversmiths and our Navajo rug weavers. And so I think if you go back and look at that, there's some very interesting lessons learned that we as a chamber need to revisit and look at. And so, we do agree that a lot of our Navajo businesses, especially the sheep raisers, the cattle raisers, the rug weavers, maybe they don't get top dollar for all their work. And so it gets back to trying to understand how each work and put emphasis on it. And so it's a tough area, but how to address that is more discussions like we're doing today, providing resources to entities like the Net Chamber to start looking at it, to start addressing it, to try to understand how it works. And so that is the bread and butter. And I, for example, I sit on a national board called the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development. And over the last 2 years, I've really come to understand, and I'm not an expert, but come to understand the workings of many Indian economies, including the Navajo economy. The Navajo economy, a big part of it, it's not underground, but it's what is called a traditional economy. And that's where, that's where the money turns. That's, from the jewelry and artists that sit on the side of the roads. It's from the people that sell their cattle and their sheep to markets. I grew up as a rancher, so I know Berlin, I know Cortez, I know Albuquerque, because I've taken my cows there, and so I understand that. And so, but from the chamber's perspective, I guess quite simply, we need the support and the resources to help put a framework around that. And so, so discussions like this today help do that. And so, but for again, Delegate Keon Begay, he raises some great points, and we certainly would like to get there. And we do, and we are looking at all the additional programs that have been created and authorized through the Biden-Harris administration. What opportunities are there that we can tap into? And so Mr. Henderson did say that right now we're a 501c6. We need to also create a 501c3 so that we can apply for a lot of the grant opportunities out there. And so we think that this is very important. The Navajo Nation, because of COVID, now has a spotlight on us. And so we think that there's many opportunities that we can garner for our Navajo businesses. And so we want to take advantage of that in a good way so that we provide meaningful help to our supply chains. And we want to help support Like, for example, the Navajo Arts and Crafts. We want to help support the businesses out there. We want to talk more. So I know I have a long answer here, but it just thank you for raising this to our attention. We have been discussing it. It's just a matter of how do we get resources to help get some people to help better understand, so we can come up with some viable long-term programs. So we appreciate the question, Mr. Chairman and members of the RDC. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. Honorable Begay, your follow-up comment.
Chairman, I apologize, RDC members, if I'm taking up too much time. But another area which I always make recommendation to our Navajo Nation enterprise. Have you spoke directly with the chapter officials or the chapter coordinators or the community? Maybe my comment or statement to you is that maybe secure a group of people, a vendor, a seller, a wholesaler, a jewelry maker, a rug weaver, and so on, or rancher, provide and get input directly from them. I mean, that's another request from me. Not just only just because I'm in a delegate position. That doesn't necessarily will always mean that you follow what I say. But it's just more of a recommendation. But again, dit a yang hi jahanat zi do dit a khasha be kha ti jahato ni do a e be ben na chikoto nat a ben hi ta hui ne jot a so sa hona nat a e sho he de ne la la hi hi ta hat ne la do e ta be tan zi nit a ko de tra ho zan de te ya but a kwa gi na a ki do e de la de ne ka ta da do kheto a don la de na ne din gi khata yi set la. And I sure like to hear from you guys that you have visited a home where a jewelry maker say that, here, look at this, and this is how I make this jewelry, and this is how I make my living. I mean, how can the Chamber of Commerce help me? I mean, you'll probably never hear the end of it from me, but of course, I'd like to hear some justification directly. To my area, Lando, look at your area, all you jewelry makers, the whole I don't they Loman area, Ugap, Conwood area, all you bakers, you ranchers, not the whole because those are some people that we represent them. We just relay these messages to you guys. Would be more beneficial if you guys go out on Hinlated and then Hinkibe show pictures, say that he no yate adonde kita hote go into the heart of the Navajo people's area and then get their mix and get the message directly from them. So we'll probably coordinate in helping one another. So it is what request an Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. Mr. Watchman.
Mr. Chairman, and again, our members of the RDC and Delegate Kealan Begay, great question and great suggestions. And so on behalf of the chamber, if right now we have limited resources, and so I can commit that if we work together and through ARPA and other resources, if we could channel that through the chamber, we will get out there and start engaging in conversations with all the business sectors. Right now, we've been talking to the contractors and the consultants, and you're right. We have not reached out to the ranchers. We have not reached out to the artisan. We did get a list, though, of all the 6,000 individuals that applied for the Navajo Artisan Relief Fund. And so our plan is to reach out to them as best way we can. So from the chamber, I'll just conclude with, if we can get the support that we're asking for, we will be out there. We will start reaching out because it is very, very important. And we have said in the past, especially during COVID, how do we, like, for example, the PPP or even the unemployment, how do we get all these COVID resources to the ranchers? And so it was a challenge. And so, some of the things that we've been talking about is that one of the reasons why many of the artisans and the ranchers didn't qualify for PPP or Navajo Artisan Fund is because they didn't have bookkeeping. So we've been trying to reach out to QuickBooks. We've been trying to reach out to Intuit. How can we put together a program so that our businesses can keep books? That's the big drawback. The reason why our Navajo businesses didn't qualify is that they didn't have books. And so with technology today, you can use your phone and start keeping your books. And unfortunately, that's the only way that many of us can qualify for these grants and assistance is through bookkeeping. So we've been talking about that. We just got to now accelerate that and push that. So there's a lot of ideas that we've been talking about, a lot of good ideas that we're hearing today. And so with your support, members of the RDC and members of the Navajo Nation Council, the 24th Navajo Nation Council, if we can get the support, we think we can do our part as a chamber to help our fellow businesses, all of them here on the reservation. So I'll stop there, but thank you again, Kehat, for all these great questions and great conversations. So Kehat again, Chairman Nez.
Mr. Watchman, honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? And colleagues on the line as well.
Chairman, I have a question. This is Delegate Phil.
Honorable Show, go ahead.
Sure. My question is, you guys can hear me. I really appreciate the Chamber of Commerce coming together to present and make this presentation. And I really try to follow the committee, and I come from a large setting of a committee, a community that has everything. You only have one chapter, but us delegates that have one chapter, we have it one chapter for a reason, and it's due to the population factor. But the economic development was whether it's in Tuba City, Chindley, Fort Defiance, Crown Point, and Shiprock, and Kayenta. The issue is that in that Chamber of Commerce, being so in Diego, and the economic development you have lived the world of the business aspects of the Navajo Nation. And some of you have businesses currently, and your businesses are contributing to the Navajo Nation coffers. But yet we have a division that supposed to be looking at the revitalization and the creation of businesses to keep the dollars on Navajo, but yet our programs, I don't know what that issue is, but I appreciate these questions, these Q&As. And one thing is that I guess, how is the Chamber of Commerce working directly with Division of Economic Development and nonetheless Division of Community Development and nonetheless the social impact? I think that you have to have a conversation with Department of Health. And then the other is the judicial branch and public safety. How is division of the Net Chamber of Commerce working unison with these entities? Because all of these things speak to business. What is the dialogue? What is the response of the mother government to the Net Chamber of Commerce so that, I always say that the Navajo Nation business forefathers are like the Romero Brown and the Richard Mike and the Logic, the Cayenne, these people that have current businesses established on the Navajo Nation. Alcohol. Other is, we know that there is issues with the federal policies at the federal level. And how has the business or the Net Chamber of Commerce, has the Net Chamber of Commerce has ever made a formal and an official recommendation to the Navajo Nation presenting to implore on business changes in the Code of Federal Regulations that governs Indian country? Because this would speak to the bonding issue that Mr. Watchman talked to. This would speak to the other loan issues. We have Wells Fargo established on the nation, but yet there's probably few loans that has been given to the Navajo business people through Wells Fargo due to the land status. But how can we move forward to try to change these policies at the federal level to allow Wells Fargo, because Wells Fargo houses the Navajo Nation's money. All of our money, the $1.8 billion is sitting in the Wells Fargo account, probably creating interest. The dollars are invested overseas. Wells Fargo is making money off of us, and that economic change of how could we try to harness and change the practice on the federal Indian reservation, and it's going to require federal policies to be changed at the federal level, meaning that leadership would have to lobby and work with the our federal partners, and those recommendations. I think that's one area that we need to look at, because the business opportunity zones across the Navajo Nation that is identified by the federal government is something that is really a useful thing that we could tap into. But under the previous administration, President Russell Begay spoke about that. Adon, the president before him, Ben Shelley, spoke of that. And maybe the Net Chamber of Commerce, maybe you guys may have some sort of expertise to try to find that guide. And I think if you come together to work with leadership, I think we can try to move forward to try to find that path. And then, yes, I do agree that we need to have a dialogue with the Net Chamber of Commerce so that we could try to help our entrepreneurs, whether they're working from home, trying to open that business at a shopping center or wherever on Navajo that has and right now we have to find that path and find a way. We know we can't build a store in every community, but we have to make sure that these feasibility studies are done so that we know that the assurance that the business will be able to flourish and the need of that community. Flagstaff from my community to the city. Whatever Bashes cannot provide, whatever shopping center cannot provide, and so forth. Based on this Flagstaff or Page go Gallup, our ranchers out there. I am thankful that Honorable Kealan Begay spoke of our ranchers and our and I really think that one way to grasp and benefit these ranchers the taxes, and I think that's a form of some sort of revenue that the nation could harness. There's fees that is taken out from the sales barn and the state taxes that has to be paid. So I think in lieu of that, I think if we could get a tax structure on our grazing, I think that would be suffice so that we could try to fund certain aspects and try to help our ranchers with those resources to improve their herd, just like the Navajo beef logo. Texas didn't at a Texas steakhouse. Navajo beef is being utilized and purchased by a steakhouse there, and our brand is out there. Just think as a bigger scale, much larger scale than that. All of our ranchers is all I think that our ranchers could really benefit from that, and it would really increase the cattle value for them, and then the quality of cattle, not the quantity, the quality. The big gashi ya big gashi at in kadeya big gashi eta no tozo zebras not just na helen yo to ya shoda hoda hot it's a issues and a lot of concerns in my community and today I'm in Tuba City, and I talked to a tourist coming from New Jersey, New Jersey, and I really like it out here. And why is it that there is no Applebee's? And I said, I'll tell you a story, sir, and I told her a rundown. And this is how the federal laws are structured for Indian reservations. Somewhere we have to find a path so that we could build the first Applebee's on the Navajo Nation, whether it's in Winter Rock, or whether it's in Shiprock, or whether it's in Tuba City or in Kayenta. policy change is something that I think really needed, and I really appreciate the report and presentation from Mr. Watchman and Mr. L. Henderson and the team and Hispano Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for being on the line. And yeah, I'm going to go on mute, and I will. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable So. Mr. Watchman.
Chairman Nez, and great question from Honorable Delegate Otto So. It's a long question, but the response that we have is we believe that here on the Navajo Nation, we have unique challenges, we have unique problems, and so it requires unique solutions. And so one of the things that we've been saying is that we need to really focus on public-private partnerships. Navajo Division of Economic Development, and I worked there years ago as an intern. I know that operation. I used to work at OMB. I know how they work. I've also been on the outside as a banker, and so, but I say unique in that we have to collaborate together. We can't, as a chamber, can't do it all by ourselves. The Division of Economic Development can't do it all by themselves, in our opinion. So if we conceptually look at a public-private collaboration partnership, we can start to address all these obstacles that get in the way. You know, the trust status of our land, the limited understanding of our Navajo laws, and that's what makes a bank hesitant. That's why Wells Fargo doesn't want to lend here on the reservation, because they say they don't understand the Navajo courts, they don't understand Navajo law, they don't know if a business decision would be solved in a good way. So we have to bring attention to that. We do advocate for a business corp, but basically more collaboration is needed, and that's through these discussions here. We have talked about the limited business court system. There is a proposed resolution that was out there that hasn't gone anywhere that could and may address how to handle a legal dispute with a business, and that's through the business courts. That could happen. We do have some of our members that are involved with chapters, and so that's where a lot of it happens. And so, so from the chamber standpoint, again, we have limited resources. We feel that if we could improve our resource base, we can help and work with the Division of Economic Development. We don't want to do what they do, and I know that they don't want to do what we do, but we have to work together. And so a team of that fashion could address and will, we think, open the markets. And so, one thing that really is needed is that we just have to understand the supply chain. We have to market ourselves in a good way. And then we have to ensure that we have the quality, good beef, good rugs, good jewelry. And so if we all work on that together, we can achieve that. And so that's why we're here today, members of the RDC, members of the council. We are looking for, we're looking for an investor. The Navajo Nation invests in the Net Chamber so that we can grow and improve our services to help the silversmith, to help the rug weavers, to help the cattle growers, to help the sheep growers, to help the burrito lady, the burrito people, to help the flea market folks, to help the consultants, to help the architects, the engineers, the construction companies. There's a whole list. That is our dream and our goal. Our dream, everybody has to have a dream and a goal. Our dream is to help each and every business on the reservation so that they can grow. So what kind of help do they need? They need access to markets. They need marketing. They need some resources. They need capital. They need a place to do business. They need someone to sell their product to. That's our goal, is to get there. And so, but it gets back to these conversations. It gets back to setting up meetings with Division of Economic Development. We do periodically. We do talk with them, but everybody's so busy. But this American Rescue Plan is bringing to light the needs. And so we appreciate all this. And, you know, if we can continue and if we're supported even more so, we will do our best to sit down and help draw the plans out to help grow, you know, our great Navajo Nation economy. So, so we'll stop there. But again, we appreciate the support. I appreciate the question from Delegate Otto So. So, sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. Let me go back to Honorable Kealan Begay.
Chairman, another area that I forgot to mention earlier regarding helping local stock farming. Just we got a lot of land that are available for farming. So that's a quick question, Chairman.
Mr. Watchman?
Yeah, again, that's another one that I failed to mention, and this is in regards to Delegate Keon Begay's question. We are talking to some folks that want to put together a proposal, and we partner with them to look at native food sovereignty. And so we do, in fact, Mr. Henderson is working on that right now. And, you know, trying to understand, and we're trying to use federal resources and teaming and how do we improve the growers and the markets that are out there. So we understand that's a big need. Of course, you need water, but real quickly, you know, we're trying to, on a pilot basis, figure out, you know, how to address, I'll say, Navajo food sovereignty, which goes back to the farmers and goes back to, you know, our great farmers out there that grow corn and squash and beans and other things. And so we're starting to dabble into that to understand that. So when you talk about now a business, the more you talk, the more it just gets bigger and bigger. You know, it's not just the Applebee's out there. You know, it's not just the jeweler that's sitting over there, you know, by Monument Valley. It's the people that grow corn and squash. It's the people that harvest and get ready for the fairs, which we don't have. You know, you see folks, you know, with their, it used to be, you know, the car trunks open, but now you see a canvas and they lift it up and you see, you know, the steamed corn, or you see the melons. And so, you know, our goal and dream from the chamber is how do you improve the quality? How do you get top dollar for those individuals that labor and spend their time to grow a product, to make a product, and to provide a service? And so, but farming is one of them. So we haven't forgotten that one, sir. So that's my quick answer to that. So members of the RDC.
Thank you there for your response, Mr. Watchman. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions for Mr. Watchman? Other honorable colleagues wish to ask questions? None? Thank you very much, Mr. Watchman, for your presentation.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, this is Liddell Davies. I'm a member of the board for Diné Chamber. I'm wondering if I might comment just very briefly?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. You have the time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee and honorable council delegates who joined on the call this morning. We really appreciate your time. What I wanted to just add quickly in response to both Mr. Vice Chair So and Mr. Begay, Kealan Begay's comments was that the Chamber's primary mission is to advocate for Navajo businesses. And that's a mission that's shared by all chambers across the country. And so in our role as an advocate for businesses, we do reach out and have reached out to not only our own government through you, the council, as well as the executive branch, at opportunities where we can do that. We've reached out to let people know what we are promoting, and realizing that we have lots of issues that are very challenging on the nation for small business development, for our economy to grow, some of which are issues that are in the hands of the United States Congress. And so reaching out and presenting and talking to people like Tom O'Halloran, or as Derek mentioned, other representatives, and letting them know that there are challenges that can be addressed through legislation on a federal level that need to come together in order to help facilitate our economy and growing our economy, not only just here on Navajo, but in Indian country in general. And so we do that. We have been doing that for all of the years that we've been in existence, reaching out across to the different Navajo Nation agencies and talking with them on a regular basis. For instance, with Marty Ashley at Tax Commission. Again, I said the President's office as well, the Vice President's office, to just so that our government officials and leaders know what the issues are that prevent us from having a booming economy, and we're getting there, and it is very hopeful under the American Rescue Plan Act and this funding that we can make some significant changes that will make a difference in the lives of our Navajo people. With respect to the businesses like artisans, rug makers, jewelry makers, our ranchers, our farmers, those businesses can be supported by other Navajo businesses. It was mentioned going to the wholesaler jewelry supplies, turquoise, silver, that they go to non-Navajo businesses off the reservation to get that. We envision that there are Navajo entrepreneurs who would like to be in that business, be a wholesaler, provide those services to our Navajo silversmiths, our Navajo rug weavers here on Navajo, not just Griswolds providing wool, but our own, through our own Navajo sheep herders, those who provide wool. Back in the day, we all remember when there were like a co-op where everybody would bring their wool to one central location and sell it at that time. But we believe that our own Navajo businesses that aren't there yet, we can help build up their capacity and then build our economy through them. So Navajo businesses are providing other Navajo businesses with services, goods and services. That's our vision. And I think that we're in a great position to be able to do that with respect to the AR PA funding that's available now. So again, we appreciate your time this morning, and we are always available to answer any questions and to respond. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart, you have the floor.
Okay, good morning, Tonight Chair, RDC members. Tonight, and then the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for this presentation again this morning, and the work and the effort that went into the presentation and the breakdown as well that has been presented. And I just wanted to say, Shana, I think this is why, we wanted to have and request that Mr. Willie's shop, economic development, be a part of this, because we're going to hear all these plans. And I think it would be better if all these departments and divisions relating with economic development come together, because all of our Navajo businesses, ranchers, farmers, they're going to come together and they're going to request for funding from all these entities. And it's going to be, I like this process of what has been presented to us, the assistance that would be given to our entrepreneurs, to our ranchers, and the guidance on how to use the funding, because we are trying to stress as well that, they use the funding to benefit either their enterprise or their business, their small business that they have. And looking at what we went through with CARES, there was a lot of small businesses that never got the funding, either due to not understanding the application process or them having two addresses, one for work and one for home, and they didn't understand and they couldn't figure that out from the Division of Economic Development. They ended up questioning these businesses that have had this type of operation for a number of years. And that's why I keep asking Mr. Willie is, where are you at in your process, making sure. And then when he asks us to participate in meetings, because I had some community members, jewelry makers, and others that came to me, asking and telling me their situation with using two different addresses. And especially within the communities that we, some of us take care of, where we fall in two different states or we fall in three different counties. And, I never knew it was going to be that much of a conflict between even Arizona and New Mexico with the residents, due to the fact that New Mexico residents get a benefit on their taxes at the year end, but Arizona doesn't. So that line between Fort and all the way to Crystal, it's those individuals that fall in there. Some of them have small businesses. So something like this that would help them to understand where they fall, where they would be more beneficial for them, to assist them in their business development and their business, keeping up with their business, I think would be good. And I see that in the presentation. And I did hear you ask for Mr. Willie or anybody from there. And I don't know if they ever got on the line, Shania, but that's something, I think that we need to ask them as well, as where is their thoughts going to be? How are they going to work with these small businesses like this? This is just a comment I want to make. But again, thank you for the Chamber of Commerce for providing us this presentation this morning, and sharing what their thoughts are that they put together with other small business owners as well. And they meet, weekly, every Monday at 1 o'clock, and I participated in a couple of those meetings. And that's just what I wanted to share. But there was some good points, raised for the agriculture, the livestock, and also the other small crafts, we'll call them, or arts and crafts that are done by our people to make a living out of, and the talents and creativity that go into those things, and that they sell not only locally, but they sell worldwide. So I just wanted to share that much, Shana. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Mr. Watchman?
Thank you, Chairman Hess, and again, thank you, members of the Resource and Development Committee, and thank you, Delegate Stewart, for the question. I'll try to answer. My internet was in and out, and so, but that brings up a very good, interesting topic, and that is the viability of our broadband and internet. And so we know that some of the ARPA money is going to be used, and with today's commerce, internet and broadband is really, really needed. And so I'm digressing a little bit, but some of the challenges that our Navajo businesses had in applying for a loan or applying for the payroll protection program loan is that the shoddy internet. You start your application, your internet goes down, you got to start again, so it just gets frustrating. And so we're hoping that the internet and broadband will be addressed, and that's really going to be needed. Getting back to what I heard from the comments from Delegate Stewart, and this goes back to what Ms. Davies was saying, is that we have unique challenges here on the reservation. Unique, and people say, well, we're not unique. Well, everyone has unique, but we are to a certain degree more unique than others because we live here on the Navajo reservation. It's a reservation, it's federal land. With that, some additional challenges are put on the table, and that is sovereignty, and we have our own laws, and we have right now, for example, for me as a small business, I apply for certain things, so I send them my certificate of incorporation for Navajo law. They come back and say, this doesn't work. We need something from the state. And I said, well, I am in the state of Navajo Nation. Here's my paperwork. So I have to sit on the phone and complain and haggle with them. Finally, they say, oh, okay, you guys have your own laws. And so because of that, in many cases, the banks, the insurance companies, the bonding companies, they don't understand that. So we together have to say, this is Navajo law, this is how it works. So the Wells Fargos and others, I know when I was at Chase Bank, we just said, we don't want to deal with it. It's too hard. We don't want to understand, spend time to figure that out. So it's incumbent upon us through the chamber to paint the picture of this is how you do business on Navajo. And this is for everybody. And so, but our commitment and our goal is to help each and every business that we can. There's 6,000 plus businesses that are registered, and I was surprised to see that. And that came about when the Division of Economic Development did their CARES Act, Navajo Business and Artisan Relief Fund. 6,000 businesses, that's a lot to me, but it's also a big responsibility. All of us have to work together to figure out how we can help each and every one of those businesses to either come out of COVID, to grow, and to expand. And so I know Delegate Stewart just had some comments, but our feedback is that if everybody is properly resourced, including economic development, including the Net Chamber, including the Navajo CDFI, including the other nonprofits out there, Change Labs, the Shiprock CDC, there's a community development corporation in Chinle. If we all, and I should say, the Net College again, NTU. If we all get a sufficient amount of resources, we certainly can work together to address and grow our Navajo economy. We think that there's no other way than to have resources. And so $1.8 billion is a lot of money in many cases, but it's not enough. I think I heard our leadership present to the Fort Defiance Agency Council that there's 500 plus projects. The list now is probably at $4 or $5 billion. So we just don't have enough money. But from the chamber and working with the Division of Economic Development, working with the Navajo Nation Council, and working with the Resource Development Committee, we want to try and do our part to address those problems with solutions so that they can go to market, they can sell their stuff. As Ms. Davies pointed out, we have been talking to. We had Mark Kelly join our call the other day. We've had Congresswoman Teresa Aguilar Ledger and Teresa Ledger join us. We've had Tomer Howard. So we've been saying that there's a big market opportunity here on the reservation. We just need support from everyone, not us, but our businesses need support so that we can grow and flourish, so that we don't have to go to town. We can stay here. We can stay in Window Rock. We can stay in Kayenta. We can stay into the city and buy from ourselves. And so I know I'm just repeating myself, but again, it gets back to these discussions. It gets back to forming the public-private relationship. We think that I think there's a lot of reliance on the Division of Economic Development, which is good. But if you go off reservation, there's also a big reliance on the nonprofit, on the private side. They work hand in hand to solve problems and come up with solutions. So that's what we're here today to do, is to offer that, so that we can get business going and get our people back to work, get those jobs going. And so, but I'll stop there, and I appreciate again the comments from Delegate Wilson Stewart Cat. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the RDC. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? Honorable Vice Chair Walker, go ahead. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, you have the floor. Press star 6 to unmute.
Okay. I was muted. Sorry about that. Thank you, Chairman, committee members, staff, presenters, Mr. Watchman, for the information and the presentation, then your responses. Appreciate that. Like with all meetings, there's discussion that gets bigger or deeper discussions, and basically you end up learning quite a bit than you set out to do. So I think we're all learning here some things again. The part about small businesses that operate off the Navajo Nation, but near the Navajo Nation, like in these border communities that are surrounding Navajo. There are our people out here selling their wares or jewelry, their produce, their creations, their artwork. And then some have businesses also off reservation in these border communities, but they are members of our nation. They're our relatives, they're our people. With the presentation given here by the Net Chambers of Commerce and some of the ideas that are presented here about helping the Navajo economy, helping Navajo people and businesses to be part of that recovery from the pandemic in the economic sense. I guess I'm missing out the nation vendors, Navajo vendors and Navajo businesses off nation near the reservations, near our homeland in these border towns. How are they part of these plans and ideas? I'd like some feedback on that. You may have covered it, and but I'd like to kind of go back to that again. And then, of course, there are some Navajo businesses that are so small that you don't even know they're businesses, like these people that do horse training, horse farriers, just people that even cut hair, hair salons that are just based or operate out of their homes, the massage therapists that don't have fancy signs or Facebook pages. All they have is their name and the work that they do. They're known for it. When you talk about Navajo businesses, doesn't necessarily mean they're well established or they're informal types. And I know some of the ones I mentioned here, the very informal ones, do not want to get formal. They don't want to get registered. They don't want to be on anyone's registry because they have business. They do their services, provide services or their goods, and they do fine. But I think they are Navajo, and we still look out for their interests. Yeah, my comments there without those questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Mr. Watchman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Vice Chairman Walker, for the questions and comments. I mentioned the 6,000 plus registered businesses. I mentioned the 275 businesses that are on the June 2021 Navajo Economic Development Resource List. Many of those are off reservation. And so when the chamber talks about supporting businesses, and when we reference the 6,000 or the 275, those businesses are on and off the reservation. So we're here to support all of them. And so we do know that, for example, for the ARPA money, the 1.8 billion, that was predicated on the number of enrolled Navajos, 400,000 plus Navajos. And so, my guess is half of them live off the reservation. So our support and our services go to Navajos on and off reservation. So that's probably the big thing that we need to point out here. And so when I mention off reservation, I'm mentioning the big, well-established construction companies that are non-Navajo owned. When I mentioned the architect and engineering companies, there's quite a few that are off reservation and they're non-Navajo owned. A lot of them get the work here on the reservation because they have the size or they have the staff, and so it's the endeavor of the chamber to have that work that potentially goes to them to go to our Navajo businesses. And there's a lot of talk about capacity, and maybe these bigger companies have the capacity, but we believe that they also have the ability to partner with our Navajo companies. To do a $200 million project here on Navajo, there's probably very few companies here on Navajo that are qualified. Well, if they have a partnership of some sort, if a Navajo company teams with an outside firm, then it gets the job done. The job gets done. The Navajo owner is benefiting, the non-Navajo owner is benefiting, and so maybe it's the best of all worlds. And so, but moving on to the small businesses, there is a big word of mouth, as it's called, word of mouth marketing out here. And yes, we realize that some of the businesses don't want to be registered, don't want to be recorded, and so we respect that. I understand that, and so, but what we're trying to accomplish is that those private businesses that benefit on word of mouth, they need the customers. The customer has to basically have the money and the resources to do that. So if we get many businesses going and say, you know, a business owner needs a haircut, well, he's going to have a job, he's got the money, or she, that person can now go to the barber and get the haircut and pay for it. So our goal is to have the resources for that client or that customer to have resources to pay for their service. So that's what it's all about. If you don't have jobs, if you don't have people making money, they can't buy anything. And so when I talk about jobs, that's what I'm talking about, good paying jobs. When you get people working, they have money in their pocket so that they can buy stuff. They can get their hair cut. You know, they can go get a burrito or a tamale over by Bash's, and they have that. And so that's what we call economic development, in our opinion, is that you create jobs so that people have money, they can buy the goods and services. And we hope that purchase of those goods and services are done here on the reservation. Now, the word of mouth, that's an informal marketing mechanism, and it works very, very good. I know that, you know, during, you know, the traditional ceremonies that I've had, I said, I need sheep. So we start talking to people, who has sheep for sale? We start talking to people, oh yeah, you go way over the hill, there's, you know, a family over there, they have some sheep. That is marketing. So I'm going out there to a Navajo family that, you know, that raises sheep for sale. And so, you know, that's word of mouth marketing. And so there's a lot of that happens on the reservation. We know that, and we respect that. And so, but, you know, getting back to, you know, how do we function as a chamber? Our goal is to try to identify all the markets, bring some marketing behind it, get the contracts to our Navajo businesses so they create the jobs. The owners and the people that work at those companies have money to spend locally. You know, they can go, you know, here in Winter Rock, they can go down to the flea market, or they can go down the street and get the wood that they need for their ceremony, get the haircut. So that's how we look at it. And so, but to do that, you need good roads, you need electricity, you need the internet. And so, you know, those are issues that we know that the Navajo Nation leadership is addressing. So we're just a small part of that. And so, but at the end of the day, one of the goals that we have is that as the nation starts to contract and starts to procure those services, it's our hope that our Navajo businesses will get those contracts, will get those purchase invoices so that they can be a supplier. That's our big goal. And then through the chamber and through the proposal that we put on the table, we help support those Navajo businesses so they can get the job done. You know, they can get the short-term line of credit, they can get the performance bond, they can get the professional advice to get the job done quicker. And so, you know, the list goes on, but you know, Mr. Walker had a really good comment, and that is that the more we talk, the more we learn with deeper discussions. So this has been a very enlightening and very thought-provoking discussion. So, but Hehat, Delegate Walker, for that. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the Resources and Development Committee. Hehat.
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? Sashin Naidos Kitchen and Koro Etten Goshecho Kojempa Ilkit. We have received the Danette Chamber of Commerce's ARPA plans to help Navajo-owned businesses recover from the effects of the pandemic. Moving forward, the plan of action the Chamber would like to achieve in assisting the Navajo Nation's economy recover. Honorable Vice Chair Walker pretty much said it. Recovery and rehabilitation of the Navajo Nation economy. We really need a plan in this area with the whole Navajo Nation government. Koshin, Our recommendation are to have a follow-up meeting with the Division of Economic Development and see how both entities are helping our Navajo entrepreneurs, ranchers in the areas of different artisans that we also have, rug weavers, silversmiths, and artists. Today, as we understand, President Nez signed legislation 0104-21, and that will really help the artisans, the tourism industry at these parks like Monument Valley and Antelope Point and other areas, and really help the artists recover from this devastation that was caused by the pandemic. So I believe, Mr. Henderson, a lot of these artists need help setting up their website as well. They ought to perhaps have a listing information, contact information of all the artists and the areas of their expertise as far as making jewelry, making rugs, and just whatever it is that they do, whether it's painting and things that they craft as artisans, and create a website for them also. So I'll give the time back over to Mr. Watchman for a closing statement.
Thank you, Chairman Nez, and members of the Resource and Development Committee, members of the Navajo Nation Council, the 24th Council, and individuals from the executive branch. I see some of them are on. The Net Chamber of Commerce has been around since 2013, and we've been slowly and diligently advocating for development here on the reservation. We've been advocating for improvement and delivery of services. We've been advocating for more businesses to thrive here on the Navajo Nation. With the CARES Act and now the American Rescue Plan, we put together a $100 million plan that we believe helps build capacity for our Navajo businesses, because we did hear that our capacity here on the reservation is very limited, and that in order to spend the $1.8 billion, we may have to utilize non-Navajo companies off the reservation to get the job done. We understand that, but we also understand that if the nation with the Diné Chamber can invest in our businesses, we can get our Navajo businesses with the proper capacity to help get the job done. And what's the job? The job is dealing with the water, dealing with electricity, dealing with broadband, dealing with education, dealing with solar power. Each and all of those needs can be done with a Navajo-owned business. And so with our $100 million plan, we know that we can invest this $100 million to get our Navajo businesses ready to go, ready to work. And so it's almost like, to me, the old ONEO days, the 10-day program. I kind of date myself, but back in the ONEO days, they had the 10-day program where you go out and you basically hire these people to get the job done. And so I'm going to liken kind of what I see today with what I saw back in the 60s and the 70s. And I think that's what President Joe Biden is doing. He's going back and looking at these programs that really help America. And so here on Navajo, the ONEO program and other programs in the past really provided a big economic jumpstart to our economy and our people and our land. And so with the American Rescue Plan, if we invest in ourselves and if we invest $100 million through the NIT chamber to our Navajo businesses, you'll definitely see results. It'll bring pride, more pride to our Navajo businesses. It'll bring revenue. It'll bring resources. It'll create profits. Those profits will be spent here on the reservation. That is our big goal from the chamber. And so I'll conclude there, and we ask humbly for your support as you start to deliberate how to spend the 1.8 billion. We know there's a lot of needs, a lot of people hurting. And so, you know, our people have been devastated with COVID-19. We understand that many of our businesses will not return because a loss of a life of the entrepreneur. And so, but we hope that we can help either their offspring or whoever owns that business to reopen. And so we believe, based on many, many years that our members have, who are members of the chamber, our board, that this is dollars that will be well spent, well deserved, and it'll provide returns that will last for generations. So with that, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, members of the RDC, we'll close there, and we appreciate the time that you spent with us. So, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Watchman. When council starts introducing legislations to allocate funding to certain different enterprises, divisions, I believe at that time council will pretty much ask questions, and some of them were asked today. So as I see, you've done a good job in providing your presentation to the honorable members of the Resources and Development Committee, Mr. Watchman, as well as your team that you have on the line with us today, including Ms. Davies. So, honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? None. It is currently 11:39. Our recommendations are to have a follow-up with Division of Economic Development and putting all this together and moving forward to help our Navajo people. So thank you very much. We will adjourn at this time. We have another leadership meeting at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Hakona, have a good day.
Oh, Hakona.
Hakona, yeah.
Oh, Hakona.